Frescoes depicting the founding of Rome adorn the walls of the great hall of Horati and Curiati in the Campidoglio, a great building in Rome that was constructed and decorated in the tail end of the Italian Renaissance. Why does this matter at all? Well, from the 2nd to the 10th of May, in 1922, the International Astronomical Union, or IAU, brought representatives from Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Czechoslovakia, Denmark, France, Great Britain, Holland, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Norway, Poland, the United States of America, Romania, and Spain to discuss and finalize the 88 officially recognized constellations of the night sky. According to this article, the meeting was thoroughly successful. That's right. What a hoot. Good. Good on them. They selected largely from constellations recognized by the ancient man Ptolemy, as well as those discovered by astronomers and explorers, especially from the Age of Exploration, during which, according to Europe, new angles to look at the sky were being developed. As for the nations and astronomers that weren't represented at this meeting, whose observations and opinions about how the night sky should be connected to images and stories weren't taken into account, all I can say is that they should have had an NGO talk about their constellations in front of a bunch of frescoes. Over the centuries, the shapes in the sky have inspired awe and wonder to even a religious level. They have served to guide travelers over the sea and desert, and as a canvas before the days of oil painting, cinema, or www.youtube.com for storytellers to inspire their loved ones and acquaintances. When people die, the comfort and significance of the idea that especially the greatest among the ancestors are watching us, living in another corner of the universe, it is a deeply dignifying and important sentiment. But with the rise of the scientific revolution, our understanding of the heavens changed. Greatly and ultimately, we no longer saw the stars as belonging to us, and instead imagined that what lay out there was a horrible and cold expanse in which we were a mere pale blue speck or accident. Even as we actually fulfilled some of the feats of the myths, meaningful images and their importance started to fade from our star charts, and we were left with mere skeletons of what the constellations once meant to us. The ancients said that gods and heroes lived in the stars, and that they were performing great hunts or enduring many trials. The explorers in the Age of Exploration said that some animals that weren't from Europe were discernible in the stars. As time went on, constellations began to increasingly represent inanimate objects, like a furnace, a microscope, a telescope. Wow, that's really creative. That would be like making a peanut butter sandwich in the shape of a butter knife. There are two different constellations that represent a triangle. I think that shows some restraint, actually. This one represents the reticle of a telescope. And last but not least, we have the constellation Sic Parvis Stelliarmus, which of course represents a star in the night sky, as seen from the planet Earth. Today, the constellations are basically only used as reference points for navigation, astronomy, and for the amusement of hobbyists. Furthermore, they probably only take these shapes because of a tradition that got frozen in place by an arbitrary meeting 100 years ago.
No, it was indeed not a dream. We really did it. The king of all cosmos has really done it. A sky full of stars. We got it. Yes, we were naughty, Completely not.
Good. He was naughty. So now the night sky is full of nothing but darkness.
Here I thought it was light pollution.
In any case, there's no meaning anymore. No more myths or stories to gaze up at and hold in our hearts and bring to light our imagination before we fall asleep. Hopefully nobody's looking for the Messiah. That's probably not going to happen anymore. The heavens are empty. God is dead, and there is nothing at the zenith to guide us along the way. King of all cosmos, what do you reckon we do from here?
Hurry up and bring back the glorious starry Our problem? Your problem, yes? You, hand in hand, always there, yes? All right then.
I guess it's true. The solution to the meaninglessness of the universe is to play the video game Katamari Damacy. In it, you play as a horizontal-headed boy named Pee-wee Prince, and you have to recreate the constellations of the night sky using various objects that we find in suburban life. The king of all cosmos, or from the perspective of Pee-wee Prince, Dad is very overbearing and demanding, criticizing even some of the Pee-wee Prince's successful recreations of stars and constellations, serving as an adequate metaphor for the deeply moralizing and intimidating pressures of modern life that we often have to deal with without a satisfying apparatus of meaning to guide us along the way. By gathering everything on the earth and sending it into the sky, Pee-wee Prince does what humanity has always done and projects the sum of our personal experience and concerns into the heights of the cosmos, only to feel shame and anxiety at the smallness of these understandings and creations in comparison to the otherworldly scale and demands of the cosmos itself. Overall, the game is a solid 7.5 out of 10, thanks to a stable frame rate, innovative premise, and despite a control scheme that stopped me from enjoying the game at all. But what most caught my attention was a level partway through the game, which recounts one of the many stories that have been offered as an explanation for the presence of the swan constellation, Cygnus. In the rest of this video, I'm going to share this story with you because I found it to be very deeply inspiring. Our story begins, as some things do, with 3 adolescent men from East Africa. Their names were Epiphus, Phaethon, and of course, Cygnus. These 3 had grown up in the same town, and they were really close friends, even seeing each other like brothers. And they were so close, they would even share sandals sometimes. One of their favorite things to do to pass the time was to race chariots. They loved competing with one another and pitting their youthful ambition and exuberance against each other to see who was the more capable man. One day, Epiphus and Phaethon finished neck and neck in a chariot race, and neither of them was willing to admit defeat to the other. Both of them felt hurt that the other was not willing to trust and accept his sporting prowess, and the ensuing disagreement culminated in Epiphus saying to Phaethon, "You're a bastard." Unlike the many insults that they would playfully exchange with each other on a regular basis, this one hurt Phaethon very deeply, because his parentage actually was in question. Phaethon wanted to say many unkind things to Epiphus in response, but as Ovid tells us, Epiphus is believed to have sprung from the potent seed of mighty Jove, or Jupiter, or Zeus. So, not wanting to anger the king of the gods by insulting his son, Phaethon took a deep breath and internalized his frustrations, taking them home with him and letting them ruminate until he could vent to his mother, who was named Clymene. After she had patiently heard him out and put up with his outburst, without even getting a chance to share what happened in her day, Phaethon, who had calmed down a little bit by now, looked at his mother and said, "So, who is my father anyway?" To which she replied, "Phaethon, if I told you, you would never believe me." And he said, "Yeah, I would." So she said, "Your dad is the sun," which caused some confusion initially because usually the father is not the son. It's usually the son that's the son and or the offspring, but she clarified that she meant the sun in the sky, who rises in the morning and sets in the evening, and by whose warmth every corner of the earth is nurtured and illuminated. And she was right. He did not believe her. So she said, Phaethon, if you want proof, go into the sky yourself and see if the sun welcomes you as his son or not. She also decided not to follow him, citing that she believed his father was quite intimidatingly hot, and they only had the one pair of father glasses. So Phaethon traveled into the sky and entered the palace of the sun. Then Phaethon's father, the sun, said, Son, I am your father. I have been watching over you in the sky since the day you were born, and you have grown into a fine young man. I am so proud of you, and I am happy that you're here. I never thought you would visit me. I think we should have a very great feast, because most days my son was somewhere else, but today he is here instead. But when the servants of the sun, of which there were many, presented them with a great assortment of meats and bread, it got very badly burnt and charred when the sun got close to it. So the son, by which I mean the father, said, Fine, we won't have a feast. Instead, I'll tell you what, Phaethon, I'll grant you any gift that you can possibly conceive, any object, any woman or privilege that you desire. I'll make it yours without batting an eye. Look east, look west. There is nothing between both horizons that I won't make yours if you only say the word. I'll even swear upon the Styx, the binding river in hell, that I'll keep my word no matter what your wish is. That's how grateful I am to see you. His smile was positively radiant. But somehow, Phaethon was still preoccupied with the anger from his argument with Epiphus, and still wanting to prove himself and really make a show of the fact that he wasn't a bastard, and instead an excellent sportsman. He said, Dad, I want to ride your chariot across the sky for one day, so that everyone on the living earth will see me, shining in the sky from the first hours of the morning to the last hours at night. The sun looked disapprovingly at his, offspring. You know what? That might help with clarity. And said a really, really bad word that I won't repeat here. Then, for the better part of 2 hours, he pleaded with Phaethon, trying to convince him to ask for anything else. For even the almighty Jove, or Jupiter or Zeus, would not have been able to steer the chariot of the sun, so difficult and dangerous a task it was. But as Phaethon stubbornly insisted on holding his father to his word and asking for the reins to his chariot, a cold seed of dread began building in the sun god's heart, knowing that he would be unable to go back on a promise that was made on the river Styx. Reluctantly, he showed Phaethon the chariot, and while they waited for the morning, he continued to try to dissuade Phaethon from riding the chariot, with no success. At the crack of dawn, he resigned himself to giving his offspring a few pointers and wallowing in despair, while his son recklessly jumped onto the chariot and instantly angered the horses, who bounded aimlessly and chaotically into the heavens. The gods and the humans and the animals all over the world became distraught as the polar ice caps melted and the mild East African climate turned into a burning wasteland. Cities were scorched and thousands of people and dozens of gods incinerated, and it wasn't even 10 o'clock. While this happened, the Mother of Earth hid in one of the last crevices of shade, nursing her burns and crying out to Jove, God, oh God, what have I done to deserve this? What unknown sin has cast this calamity of all calamities upon me? Maybe it was my indulgences in food at the expense of the lives of the animals and plants. But then they too burn as I overlook the expanse of the fields of my bosom. Maybe it was because I was unfaithful to my husband. But then he also suffers, and more than me. He's already been burnt to a crisp. Oh Jove, Father of the skies, have mercy on me, and have mercy on somebody, and just overall, just chill out. Jove heard his sister's cries of despair, and he struck Phaethon in the heart with his thunderbolt. Phaethon only had a few seconds to recognize his mistake and feel immense guilt and dread before tumbling down into the chaos below. Also, this is why we have the Sahara Desert. Jove took mercy on the dying youngster and ordained that his daughters of the sea would carry Phaethon to his homeland and give him a proper burial. They erected a monument in his honor so that his family could find him and pay their respects. The words on the monument praised his great gusto and youthful initiative. It still stands today, and it is called the Great Monument of Great Gusto and Youthful Initiative. Clymene, the mother of Phaethon, found the monument and curled up by the stone and sobbed for many days, during which the sun did not rise at dawn, since the boy's father was also mourning in the sky, and he could not bring himself to resume his task on the chariot until one day his daughters came to cheer him up. But even then, he could not bring himself to tell them what happened to Phaethon. So, they didn't learn what happened until they themselves visited the monument. When they got there, they read it, and this is what it said. Phaethon bit off more than he could chew when he took the reins of the sun's chariot and tried to steer it through the sky. That said, let his great gusto and youthful initiative always be remembered fondly, and let this monument be named after those attributes. Phaethusa, the eldest sister of Phaethon, stepped back from the stone, and her heart turned white with dread and sadness. It curled and constricted inside her, sinking down into her stomach, then into her womb, down her leg, until it reached her foot. And from her white heart many long tendrils sank into the ground like roots. Meanwhile, her hands turned dry and sprouted leaves. Her sisters lay their hands on her, concerned, and the dryness spread to them as well, until from each of their heads long branches grew where once there was hair. Clymene ran to her daughters and frantically kissed them goodbye, as their fresh tears turned to sap and then amber. The daughters still stand as trees to this day, and are known far and wide as the trees of leaves and many roots and branches, and also little bits of amber. As for their mother, I would tell you her fate, but you remember now that this is the story not of Clymene, nor of Phaethon, Phaethusa, or her sisters. This is the story of Cygnus. Cygnus, who had been looking for his friend Phaethon since he stormed away from the chariot race with Epiphus, finally found his monument as the sisters turned to bark. He watched and read the message on the monument of great gusto and youthful initiative, and he was filled with emptiness. Cygnus cried out in sorrow, but instead of making a sound, his mouth pushed towards the sky, pulling his neck with it, so that it stretched out long, and as the hairs turned up on his back, they grew into feathers, while webs formed between his toes and the sandals he was still borrowing from his fallen friend. Having turned into a swan, Cygnus flew into the dark sky, looking for the sun chariot that his friend had crashed. And we can still see him on a clear night, after all these centuries. He still yearns to know what his friend was thinking. Thank you for watching this video presentation. Be sure to hit the bell icon and subscribe for more great videos about video games and the myths. Very good.